Welcome to today's deep dive. Right before we started, we were actually brainstorming the title and description for this one. We really wanted to make sure we captured the weirdness of this topic while hitting all those uh, hockey history and NHL awards SEO keywords.
Right, because the history here is just too good for people to miss.
Exactly. So the title we landed on is The Deep Dive, the Loophole Legends of the NHL's Calder Trophy.
I like it. It's got a good ring to it.
Thanks. And the description goes something like this. What do Wayne Gretzky, an older Soviet superstar, and a Stanley Cup MVP have in common? Well, they all broke the rules of the NHL's Rookie of the Year award.
Which is exactly our mission today. We are taking a comprehensive Wikipedia article and using it to unpack the really fascinating and honestly surprisingly controversial history of the Calder Memorial Trophy.
Yeah, because if you think an award for the best first-year hockey player is just a straightforward concept, you are in for a pretty wild ride today.
You really are. It challenges the whole definition of a seemingly simple word. When you and I think of a rookie, we generally picture a young kid, right? Fresh out of the draft, stepping onto the big stage for the very first time.
Yeah, totally.
But as we comb through the history of this specific award, we see that the NHL has spent decades constantly moving the goalposts. So this isn't just a list of hockey stats. It's an exploration of how institutions are forced to adapt and redefine their own boundaries when exceptional circumstances.
And exceptional people.
Exactly. Exceptional people just collide with the rule book.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we get into the rule breakers, we need to understand the baseline. Let's look at the man behind the hardware, Frank Calder.
Right, the namesake.
Yeah. Now, the NHL was already handing out Rookie of the Year honors starting in the 1932-33 season. A center named Carl Voss was the first recognized winner. But a few years later, in the 1936-37 season, Frank Calder decided to formalize the whole thing.
And for those who don't spend their weekends reading early 20th century sports history, Frank Calder was a massively important figure. He was the very first president of the NHL. He served from the league's inception in 1917 all the way until his death in 1943.
The undisputed ultimate authority.
He really was. I mean, if you mentally step into a 1930s hockey locker room for a second.
Oh, man, the smell.
Yeah, picture the heavy wool jerseys, the smell of damp leather, players literally smoking between periods. It gives you a sense of how different the league was back then. It was a smaller, much scrappier operation, trying to survive the Great Depression and eventually the Second World War.
Right.
Calder wasn't just some distant executive in a corporate high-rise. He was hands-on in keeping the league afloat. And when he decided to formalize this rookie award, he didn't run it through a finance committee or allocate league funds.
No, and that brings up one of the most charming details from the source material. Frank Calder actually went out and purchased the trophy out of his own pocket.
Out of his own pocket. Every year.
Every single year. I mean, imagine a modern sports commissioner doing that today, going down to the local trophy shop, pulling out his own wallet, and buying the hardware for the league's best rookie. It shows this level of personal investment in the players that you just don't see in modern multi-billion-dollar sports operations.
It speaks to the intimacy of the era. He genuinely wanted to recognize emerging talent. But of course, that era of Calder personally funding the hardware eventually had to come to an end.
Yeah, unfortunately.
After he passed away in 1943, the league stepped in to cast a permanent, perpetual trophy. And they officially renamed it the Calder Memorial Trophy to honor his massive legacy in building the sport. But the physical trophy wasn't the only thing that evolved.
No, the way they picked the winner completely changed too. In those early days, starting in 1937, Frank Calder didn't just buy the trophy. He was the sole judge and jury.
He just picked a guy.
Literally,
Yeah.
the league president just looked around and decided who the best rookie was. It was entirely unilateral.
What's fascinating here is the shift from that dictatorial approach to the highly structured democratic system we have today. Since 1948, the decision's been totally out of the league president's hands. It is now delegated to the Professional Hockey Writers Association.
The PHWA.
Right. At the conclusion of every regular season, the writers cast their ballots using a ranked choice system. They rank their top 5 candidates using a 10-7-5-3-1 point system. The math is specifically designed to find a true consensus among dozens of hockey journalists.
And that all culminates in 3 finalists who are invited to the post-playoff NHL awards ceremony. It's rigorous. It's heavily regulated.
Highly regulated.
But the real drama we found in the source material isn't about how the votes are counted. The drama is about who is actually allowed to be on that ballot in the first place.
Yes, eligibility.
Because initially, the definition of a rookie was incredibly loose. When the award was established, the only requirement was that it be a player's first year of competition in the NHL. That was it. But then, players started exploiting that simplicity.
The league eventually had to draw a very firm line in the sand regarding experience. They needed quantifiable thresholds to prevent a player from slowly acclimating to professional-level play over several years before suddenly claiming to be a first-year phenom.
Right, you can't just ease your way in.
Exactly. So the current rules state that a player cannot have played more than 25 regular season games in any single preceding season. Furthermore, they can't casually dip their toes into the professional waters for 6 or more games across any 2 preceding seasons in any major professional league.
So if you cross those lines, your rookie card is revoked.
Revoked. Done.
Okay, I want to throw chronological order out the window for a second, because understanding that regular season game limit perfectly sets up the wildest loophole in this entire deep dive.
Oh, the 1972 one.
Yes. Let's talk about the Ken Dryden aberration of 1972. So Ken Dryden won the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year in 1972, but he is the incredible catch. The season before his rookie year in 1971, he led the Montreal Canadiens to a Stanley Cup victory.
Which is crazy enough on its own.
It gets crazier. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy as the MVP of the playoffs.
It sounds completely contradictory. How can the most valuable player of the Stanley Cup playoffs be considered a rookie the very next year?
That is exactly what I kept asking myself while reading this. It makes no sense.
It all comes down to the literal phrasing of the rulebook. The threshold explicitly applies only to regular season games.
Just the regular season.
Playoff games are entirely exempt. They essentially do not exist for the purposes of calculating rookie eligibility. In the 1970-71 season, the Montreal Canadiens called Ken Dryden up really late in the year. He only played 6 regular season games.
Right, so he didn't come anywhere near that 25-game disqualification threshold.
Exactly. But then the playoffs started, and they threw this kid into the crucible of the postseason against the powerhouse Boston Bruins, and he just caught fire. He played 20 playoff games, carried the team to a championship, and was named the MVP.
Wow.
But because the NHL computer only counts regular season games, he was still technically a rookie the following October.
I mean, a player can conquer the hardest tournament in sports, hoist the championship trophy, be named the ultimate MVP, and still be a first-year player on paper the next season. That is just an incredible oversight in the rulebook. Or maybe a brilliantly exploited technicality by Montreal.
It's a stunning example of how rigid definitions can produce absurd outcomes. The NHL created a metric.
The 25 games?
Yeah, 25 regular season games to measure experience. But they failed to account for the fact that a single month of high-stakes playoff hockey provides way more experience and pressure than an entire season of regular games. And Dryden just walked right through that loophole.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because while Dryden slipped through the cracks, other legends forced the NHL to aggressively rewrite the rulebook to keep them out. Let's look at the Wayne Gretzky block in 1979.
This one is pure politics.
It really is. Anyone who knows even a little bit about hockey history knows Wayne Gretzky's rookie season in the NHL was explosive. He tied for the league lead in points. He won the Hart Trophy as the league's overall MVP. So naturally, he won the Rookie of the Year, right?
He was entirely ineligible. He wasn't even considered.
It's mind-blowing. And the reason why is pure institutional protectionism. The NHL added a specific clause to the rookie eligibility rules. You cannot have played in any major professional league. And that clause was aimed squarely at Gretzky.
We have to look at the broader landscape of hockey in the late 1970s to understand this. The NHL wasn't the only game in town. They had a fierce rival called the World Hockey Association, the WHA.
The Rebel League?
Exactly. It was a rebel league that was actively poaching NHL talent, signing teenagers, and generally causing chaos for the established NHL owners. Wayne Gretzky actually started his professional career in the WHA as a 17-year-old. He played 1 full season there.
So when the WHA finally folded and 4 of its teams, including Gretzky's Edmonton Oilers, were absorbed into the NHL, the league had a massive chip on its shoulder.
Precisely. The NHL owners deeply resented the WHA. They absolutely refused to validate the rival league. If they allowed Gretzky to come in and win Rookie of the Year, they would be implicitly admitting that his time in the WHA didn't count.
Or worse, that the WHA was a legitimate breeding ground for NHL stars.
Right. By ruling that his 1 year in the WHA constituted major professional experience, they disqualified him from the Calder. It was a petty political maneuver that resulted in arguably the greatest rookie performance in NHL history being completely ignored for the Rookie Award.
It's fascinating how a sports award became a weapon in a corporate rivalry. But the NHL's definition of a rookie was tested again a decade later. And this time, it wasn't a rival North American league causing the panic. It was a geopolitical shift.
The Makarov situation.
Yes, let's talk about the Sergei Makarov age cap in 1990. So in the 1989-90 season, a player for the Calgary Flames won the Calder Trophy. His name was Sergei Makarov. He had a fantastic season. The only problem, he was 31 years old.
This is where global history crashes into sports history. For decades, the Soviet Union had an incredibly dominant hockey program. Their players were technically amateurs because they were enlisted in the military or worked for state-sponsored companies.
But in
reality, they were full-time, elite professional athletes. They played in their own highly competitive domestic leagues and dominated international tournaments like the Olympics. But they were locks behind the Iron Curtain. They weren't playing in the NHL.
Right, until the late 1980s, when those geopolitical borders started to soften and eventually collapse. Suddenly, you have this massive influx of Eastern Bloc players arriving in North America. Makarov was one of the vanguards.
And by the literal letter of the NHL rulebook at the time, he had never played a game in the NHL, nor had he played in a recognized North American major professional league like the WHA.
So technically, this 31-year-old man was a rookie.
Technically. But philosophically, it was a disaster for the spirit of the award. Imagine being an 18-year-old kid, fresh out of junior hockey, trying to navigate your first year living away from home while playing against grown men. You have a great season, and you lose the Rookie of the Year award to a 31-year-old seasoned superstar who has been playing elite international hockey for over a decade.
The culture shock for the league was immense. It completely broke the narrative of what the Calder Trophy was supposed to celebrate. The award is meant to highlight emerging youth and potential. It's supposed to be a glimpse into the future of the league, not a reward for a veteran who simply changed continents.
That forced the NHL to amend the rules once again. They realized that inexperience in the NHL does not automatically equal rookie. So they instituted what is essentially the Makarov rule.
The age cap.
Yes, they added a strict age limit. To be eligible for the Calder Memorial Trophy, a player must be 26 years of age or younger by September 15th of their rookie season. It was the only way to protect the younger players from being overshadowed by fully developed international veterans.
It's amazing how much patching the NHL has had to do to this one specific rulebook. They patched the WHA loophole, they patched the age loophole.
Though they left the Dryden playoff loophole wide open.
True. Now, shifting away from the controversies and the rule changes, I want to take you, the listener, into the winner's circle. Because the Wikipedia article provides this massive master list of every winner, and there are some incredible trends that emerge when you look at it from a high altitude.
There really are.
First up, franchise bragging rights. If you want to know which teams have historically been the best at identifying and immediately integrating top-tier young talent, the Toronto Maple Leafs hold the all-time record. They have 10 Calder wins in their franchise history.
With their most recent being Austin Matthews back in 2017.
Right, and right behind them are the Chicago Blackhawks, sitting at 9 wins.
For an organization to consistently draft that well, and more importantly, to create an environment where a first-year player can immediately thrive and put up league-leading numbers, it requires a very specific kind of developmental infrastructure.
So what does this all mean when we look at the modern game? If you scroll through the ages of the winners over the last few decades, you see a massive shift toward extreme youth. You talked about Makarov winning at 31, but today the league leans heavily on its youngest possible stars.
The teenagers.
Exactly. There is a very elite, highly exclusive group of phenoms who have managed to win this incredibly demanding award at just 18 years old. Listen to this historical list. Bobby Orr in 1967, Dale Hawerchuk in 1982, Tom Barrasso in 1984, Nathan MacKinnon in 2014, and most recently, Connor Bedard took it home in 2024 for the Blackhawks at age 18.
To fully appreciate that, you have to consider the physical reality of the sport. Hockey is arguably the fastest, most physically punishing major professional sport in the world.
It's brutal out there.
It is. To step onto the ice against 30-year-old veterans who have spent a decade building NHL-level strength and to not only survive but be the absolute best of your incoming peer group while you are barely old enough to vote, it is staggering.
It really puts it in perspective.
It speaks to how advanced modern training, nutrition, and youth coaching have become. These kids are arriving in the NHL physically and mentally ready to dominate immediately.
And that tradition of elite young talent stepping up is clearly alive and well right now. Looking at the present day and our source material, the 2024-25 winner is a 21-year-old defenseman named Lane Hutson of the Montreal Canadiens. The pipeline of talent just never stops.
Well, almost never.
Yeah, that's true. There's one really somber visual note when you look at that master list of winners. If you scroll down chronologically, right between 2004 and 2006, you hit the 2004-05 season, and the row is just completely blank.
Just empty dashes.
Yeah.
That blank space is a stark reminder that despite all the romanticism of the sport, the NHL is still a massive business. There was no Calder Trophy awarded that year because the entire season was canceled due to a bitter labor dispute and lockout between the owners and the Players Association.
An entire rookie class lost their inaugural season to boardroom negotiations.
It's a heavy reminder. But zooming out again, looking at that list from 1933 to Lane Hutson today, it feels like more than just a registry of names.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the master list of Calder winners actually serves as a time capsule for the evolution of the sport itself. You can track how the game was played in any given decade just by looking at who won the Rookie Award.
Absolutely.
If you look at the 1950s, during the rugged Original Six era, you see legendary, tough-as-nails goaltenders winning it. Guys like Terry Sarchuk in 51 and Glenn Hall in 56. It was a lower-scoring, defense-heavy era.
And then you move into the 1980s, the era of explosive offense. And you see a 19-year-old Mario Lemieux putting up absurd point totals to win in 85.
And when you look at the recent winners, guys like Cale Makar and Kirill Kaprizov, you see the modern era perfectly represented. It's all about hyper-fast skating, edge work, and pure skill.
Exactly. The style of the Rookie of the Year reflects the prevailing style of the game at that exact moment in time. It is a mirror reflecting the sport back at us, showing us what the league values most in its newest generation.
I love that perspective. It makes the list feel alive. And I want to bring this whole discussion home for you, the listener. Because honestly, even if you have never watched a single period of ice hockey in your life, the history of the Calder Memorial Trophy is a brilliant case study in how systems, rules, and institutions are forced to evolve.
It is.
We have a tendency to view institutional rules as these permanent, infallible laws that were handed down from on high. But this deep dive proves that rules are rarely made in a vacuum.
They're almost always reactive.
Yes, they are reactions to human exceptionalism. The NHL genuinely thought they knew what the word rookie meant. They thought it was common sense, until a rival league phenom like Wayne Gretzky showed up and forced them to define professional experience.
Or until a 31-year-old Soviet star walked through the door and forced them to define the limits of youth.
Or until a goaltender like Ken Dryden won the playoff MVP before he even technically played a full regular season, exposing a massive blind spot in their accounting. The lesson here is that systems are only as good as the stress tests they face.
This raises an important question, and it's something I want to leave you to think about. As we look at how the NHL constantly had to rewrite its own definitions to protect the spirit of its institution, we should probably examine our own environments.
I like where you're going with this.
What other systems, metrics, or evaluations in your own life, your workplace, or your industry are currently relying on totally outdated definitions? Are you operating under rules that made sense 10 years ago but fail to account for the modern landscape?
That is a great point.
More importantly, are there Dryden loopholes in your own career or industry just waiting for someone clever enough to walk right through them? It is definitely something worth exploring.
A fantastic thought to leave off on. Keep your eyes open for those loopholes, and don't be afraid to stress test the rules. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Calder Memorial Trophy, the rule breakers, and the legends who forced the game to change. We will catch you next time.